What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. Happy Super Nintendo Classic Day. I say happy because, well, it's only happy if you ended up getting one. I'm actually going to be leaving soon to pick one up, hopefully at Walmart. They only have 22 of them, so it's going to be very interesting to see how this goes. But there was still some pretty cool stuff that took place yesterday, including the very looked forward to at this point, Red Dead Redemption 2 now has a trailer that it gives us a little more insight into the story, specifically where the game is taking place in the storyline. And then we also found out that before most of us got our hands on the Super Nintendo Classic, it was already hacked and Star Fox 2 has already been dumped. So let's get started. So let's get right into Red Dead Redemption 2. We got our trailer, took place at 11 a.m. Eastern Time, posted on Rockstar's website, then it also posted up on YouTube, and the trailer looks good. The visuals look great. They kind of gave us an insight to heists where we kind of rob banks and trains. That was really cool to see them kind of lined up in the forest with the bandanas on and waiting for the train to kind of stop, and it looks like they're about to jump it. But it's going to give us an insight to what happened before the events of the original Red Dead Redemption. That's right, this is going to be a prequel. Now, without ruining too much of the original one, just in case you still plan to go back and play through it before you get into the second one, characters are in this one that, well, didn't really make it through the original game. And what's great here is it looks like they're introducing kind of a new character to really have us go through these events called Arthur Morgan. And it shows, again, him and the gang kind of going through and having their way with people and kind of robbing, looked like banks. And there was all kinds of great things happening there. Really, for anyone who's a fan of the original one, looks like they're taking that idea and just running with it, making it even better. The visuals look awesome, by the way. It looks so good. So many shots were looked like they were inspired completely from original Western movies and stuff. It looks like it is going to be an awesome time. Still no release date, none at all. But what's interesting here is they are sticking to their spring release date. More than likely, they'll try to make it in really before the end of their fiscal year. They will try to kind of slide this in. You might see it in March, maybe, just to get in there right before it ends so they can get that massive sales boost. Because trust me, this game is going to sell like crazy day one. And then it's going to be selling for quite a while because, according to them, it will have multiplayer, which is great because the original one sorely needed it. Either way, I'm looking forward to this. The trailer really made this look even better because we had no idea really about the story. Now we know it's a prequel. They made a new protagonist, I guess you want to call protagonist, anti-hero, whatever, to follow. And now the question is, are we going to see John Marston? Because that is the question. We hear them say we need to go get we need another person essentially to help us, and we do know he kind of wound up with that gang in the original, despite ending up hunting them down. But the big thing here is their paths intersected at some point. So now that's the question: are we going to see him there? Is he going to be towards the end? Are we going to see events leading up to everything that took place in the original? It's going to be awesome. I'm so looking forward to the story and see what they want to really, I guess, get into and flesh out before obvious events happen in the first one. Next up, I kind of want to touch on something I saw in the news, and it's always been weird to me. I'm talking about really the Nintendo Switch icons, specifically the ones that kind of come under fire from fans. They don't like the icon that shows up on their home screen. It's always been kind of weird to me, this whole thing where there's a really big deal was made out of this. And I don't know if it's just me that I don't really care, but I mean, I guess if you really care, you want them to change it, and fans went crazy over some of these. Lego Worlds was one that kind of got some backlash, and Snake Pass seemed to be the biggest one. Well, it looks like Sumo Digital, at least, was listing the fans. They're going to be changing it. According to them, it won't be till next year, which seems weird. It takes that long, I guess, to change just the picture on the home screen. I'm not really sure what the deal is there. I'm sure they also have their hands full with other games, but it just seems weird just not to update. I mean, how long does that really take? I'm really curious about that. But either way, it's always been an interesting topic to me about this home screen thing. I know it's something you see when you turn it on, so you want it to maybe be the box art, for example. But like Lego Worlds, I looked at that and I was like, yeah, that's a pretty bad icon. But I didn't really think about complaining or really getting crazy about it. But that seems to be the case. And I think a lot of these people, at least these companies, are listening because it sounds like they're going to probably start changing some of these icons. But I'm really curious, if you were one of the people who really were frustrated with what those icons look like on your Switch, let me know down in the comments why it bothered you, and really the first one that did it. Was it Snake Pass? Was it Lego Worlds? Was it a different one? Let me know. Next up, let's talk about a little bit of retro news, I guess, that's come out recently. Now, leading up to the Super Nintendo Classic, Nintendo has been kind of posting interviews on their website with different developers with different games, and one of them really caught a lot of people's eye is an age-old, really, argument here, really back and forth about this, because it's gotten to the point where they have looked into it pixel by pixel to see what's going on here, and that is, of course, when Mario rides Yoshi. Is he punching Yoshi in the back of the head to shoot Yoshi's tongue out? If you know what I'm talking about, here's a quick picture. Now, I've always looked at it and said, yeah, he's punching Yoshi in the back of the head. It was a joke me and my cousins and brothers used to always make. Oh, you know, Mario is punching Yoshi in the back of the head, and Yoshi sticks his tongue out to eat different enemies or berries, I guess. We used to always joke that's how he feeds Yoshi, by punching him in the back of the head, making him eat like those berries that were on the trees and everything. But apparently, that's exactly what he was doing, because we got to a point where people were arguing, no, he's pointing, so he's like, his hand's going past, and he's pointing ahead like, hey, shoot your tongue, you know, that way. No, not the case. In fact, this is what the Nintendo developers had to say. Lots of people think that while Mario is pointing his finger forward, he's saying go, and Yoshi's tongue comes out. However, the setup that I drew was that when Mario punches Yoshi in the head, the character's tongue shoots out in surprise. So there you go. Apparently Mario is literally beating Yoshi to accomplish his tasks or his quest ahead of him. There's an enemy in the way. Let me just punch this dinosaur in the back of the head. It's a little odd that Yoshi, who probably could have taken Mario in this case, obviously with his ability to eat things in front of him, never turned on Mario, but I guess Mario did do worse things to him. If you were like me and you're not quite going to make that jump, well, you leave Yoshi behind and you literally jump off of Yoshi's back, sending him into the pit of nothingness. So, I don't know, it's kind of funny. Were you on the side, I guess, at this point of him pointing, or did you always think that he was just beating Yoshi constantly? I thought he was just beating Yoshi silly. I mean, look at how many of these dinosaurs he went through. He didn't care at all about them. All right, next up, let's talk about the Super Nintendo Classic that has been hacked before it even came out. In fact, the same tool that is being used on the NES Classic was hooked up, and it works on the Super Nintendo Classic, at least to the extent of dumping ROMs, which means that you can take the ROM off of the Super Nintendo Classic, take it, put it onto your computer, and then play with like SNES 9X, which is something that they have used to play the official Star Fox 2 ROM. Yeah, so people are already playing that ROM on their computer before most of us even have the thing. It's kind of funny to think about that, because the board, I guess, was so similar, there really wasn't that much of a difference in terms of hacking it. In fact, they've already dumped the NAND, which means probably by tomorrow, it'll be completely hacked to where you can put stuff on it. Here's the thing though, it's not much different than the Nintendo Classic. I mean, really the controllers are different, the shape is different, all the specs are the same. In fact, when I take it apart, you're gonna see when I compare it to the Nintendo Classic, the board's not much different. So, does it really matter too much? No. I mean, this honestly is why they stopped production of the NES Classic, because they wanted to start it for the Super Nintendo Classic. They are probably getting comfortable with their production line and how many Super Nintendo Classics they have. That's why they're not starting the Nintendo Classic till like mid next year, because they want to make sure that's all taken care of, and then they'll kind of shift production over to Nintendo Classics, where they just flash different images, like I said. Either way, it's kind of funny to think that that game is already pulled off, and I'm sure they're going to kind of look through the NAND and everything to see what the emulator is as well, because once that emulator comes off and people who develop these other Super Nintendo emulators can look at it and say, oh, that's how they made the FX chip work so well. Well, we're going to have FX chip perfect emulators at that point. And in our last bit of news, let's talk a little bit about the Nintendo Switch physical software sales, specifically the ones that are taking place in the MPD here in America. And this is, of course, coming way of really the person that reports all the MPD numbers to us on the internet, and that's from Matt Priscatella. I'm sorry if I mispronounced that, Matt, but he went on Twitter and kind of alluded to the fact that the Switch is something new for Nintendo, in that, wow, the software in the launch year is staggering compared to previous ones. He said, Switch US physical software sales are on pace to be the biggest ever for a Nintendo platform launch year since '95 by a fairly large margin. Now, 1995 is when the MPD started tracking, so they wouldn't have any data obviously before that, but that of course includes the Nintendo 64, which had a, if you go back and even look at its launch day, it had 2 games, Mario 64 and Pilot Wings. And we were happy because Mario 64 was in 3D, you know, and then that also obviously includes the GameCube. It also includes the Wii, which the Wii had a pretty good software lineup from what I remember in the first year compared to other years. But that means that the Switch is really on track to just destroy it in its first year. And I think most of us recognize that. I mean, we have a Mario Kart, a Zelda, a new IP in ARMS, Xenoblade, a Mario Odyssey. I mean, the list goes on, right? Everything is coming together for the first year, and I assume he's talking about calendar year, so we still have a little bit of ways to go here. I mean, we're going to work through, obviously, Christmas time, and then it's going to be interesting to see year 2, 2018, what happens there. I mean, let alone the fiscal year. You know, fiscal year is ridiculous if you really look at it, but what's going to happen in 2018? That is the question. Can Nintendo follow up this monstrous launch year that they put all these games into, because it was up to them. They had to show third parties they were serious, as we've talked about. What's going to happen in 2018? We like to assume either Pokemon or Metroid are going to show up that year, but we can't guarantee it. However, we're still waiting for announcements from Platinum, Retro. There's a lot of other places that still need to announce. I would expect a Nintendo Direct sometime in January, for example, to go over games for 2018, since we'll be out of the Christmas season and they're ready to look forward to building up that year. But if I had to take a guess, what do you guys think? Pokemon or Metroid would be ready for next year? I feel like they want one of the two for Christmas time. If I had to take a guess right now, Pokemon is probably the one that will be ready first. It will be ready before Metroid, mostly because Pokemon's formula is pretty tried and true. Let's be realistic here. They're not breaking any boundaries with any of their new games. It's a pretty standard formula. Not only that, they may just work off of the Sun and Moon maybe universe and just move it over to the Switch. Not exact games, but the same idea with the different Pokemon. Maybe introduce a couple extra ones. However, I do think they'll have a good 2018. It's just going to be really curious to see what happens with third parties. Wolfenstein 2 at least is there, but does anyone else jump on board? Does Capcom finally make their presence felt like they can? We'll see, guys. That's it for Newswave today. Make sure you comment, like, subscribe, all that good stuff. Let me think about any of the stuff we talked about today, whether it is Red Dead Redemption 2 and its trailer. Were you excited when you saw it? Were you really excited when you realized, wait a minute, this is a prequel? This isn't even a sequel to it, so we could probably still see John Marston in it. I'm really curious what your thoughts were on it, how it looked. I love some of the shots that they incorporated because it looked like a Western movie at times, and it's just going to be awesome, especially if the multiplayer actually happens the way they're kind of making it out to be, where we're running heists and all, pulling over trains and robbing it. It's going to be so cool if it all comes together, well, like they say it will. Also, let me know what you think about the Switch's first software lineup, I guess the first year software lineup. Does that make sense to you? Because the way I'm looking at it, wow, there's a lot of games coming out. Wow, a lot of people's wallets are getting hit hard, obviously. And yeah, now that I step back and look at it, this probably is the best launch calendar year they've ever seen. They jam-packed this year to show they have a lot of confidence in this system, in this concept, and they're basically telling third parties, hey, we're selling these things. It's time for you guys to show up. That's it for now, guys. I'll see you next time.